So now that we're done installing SOA using Quick Start, we're going to go ahead and create a SOA domain as part of lab number 3. Now, if you recall, in the lecture I said that there were 2 different types of domains. Actually, technically there's 3. There's an integrated domain, and by integrated we mean that it's actually created by JDeveloper and only exists for the runtime of JDeveloper. And so that's a quick way, if you're a developer and you want to develop within JDeveloper and deploy your SOA composites, JDeveloper will actually handle the creation and instantiation of a SOA domain. Sounds pretty cool, right? I mean, it's one less thing you have to worry about as a developer, but as soon as you shut down JDeveloper, you lose your WebLogic instance. The domain is still there on the file system, but it's not running. So it only runs within the duration of JDeveloper. So if you want something that lasts a little bit longer, something that you can interface with outside of JDeveloper, that's where we get the standalone domain. And so this lab is going to show you how to create a standalone domain, which should be very familiar to you. If you're familiar with WebLogic and you've created domains in the past. We're not actually going to use the configuration wizard to create a standalone SOA domain, Quick Start domain. We're actually going to use a separate configuration script, which is kind of watered down from the configuration wizard, and that's called qsconfig. And so one of the first things we need to do before we can actually run this script is to set an environment variable. So if you're looking at the lab guide under lab 3, we have to set the qstemplates environment variable. I'm not sure why we actually have to set this variable, why Oracle has done it this way, but this variable, environment variable, points to one or more domain templates. So we have a template for SOA and we have a template for service bus. And we need to include both because typically when we create a SOA domain, SOA Suite comes not only with the Beeple engine and support for SCA and composites, but underneath the covers, underneath all that is another layer, another product called Oracle Service Bus. So before I run the Quick Start config wizard to create the domain, I need to set my qstemplate environment variable. If you look in the lab guide, you can see that qstemplate actually points to 2 other template jar files, one for SOA and one for OSB. And they reference Oracle Home in the lab guide. So let's go ahead and set Oracle Home first. That way we don't have to type out these fully qualified paths every time. So my Oracle Home happens to be where I installed Oracle into my home directory during the previous lab. So you can see here on my screen, this is actually my Oracle Home. So I'm going to go ahead and set that right now using export Oracle Home equals, and this is sufficient. This is what you would do for a bash shell. This would work in Mac or Linux. And then I'm going to copy and just paste that in, just like so. And just to confirm. Okay, so there's my Oracle Home that is set. Now let's go ahead and set the qstemplates environment variable according to the lab guide. So I'll do another export. qstemplates equals, and make sure you include the quotes because there are spaces and comma delimited values in here. And let's echo the value again, make sure it looks the way we expect it to look, and it will expand the environment variable for Oracle Home. So that looks good to me. Hopefully I didn't type anything wrong. If you did, if there's a typo in here, when you launch the qsconfig, it will fail. So do me a favor. Now we're ready to run the configuration script. You have to be in the Oracle Home, Oracle Common bin directory. This is noted in the lab. And once you've changed to that directory, go ahead and run the qsconfig.sh script. Fantastic. So once the wizard comes up, there are 3 screens. This is pretty straightforward. This is pretty quick. There is a table of values in the beginning part of lab number 3 that tell you what username and password you should use, what the default domain location and application values should be, the ports, the listen addresses, and so on and so forth. For the most part, you can accept the defaults here, with the exception of the password for WebLogic, which we have to specify. So I keep it simple for the labs. I use WebLogic 123, but you can use whatever your memory can retain. So in this case, we've got WebLogic 123, confirm the password. And for domain location and application location, we will just leave them the default. So we'll just leave them as base domain and base domain for application location. And note the paths here for these locations. They are underneath your Oracle Home user projects directory. And then also note the default listen ports, 7001, 7002. These are fairly standard when it comes to creating a WebLogic admin server. Now keep in mind, this standalone domain is what we're configuring here, and this QS wizard is going to create a WebLogic domain with an admin server with all the SOA components deployed to that admin server. Now go ahead and hit create. Okay, so once it's 100% complete, your domain is actually created now. So go ahead and click next. And this is the confirmation screen, so you can see here what the name of your domain is. The default was base domain. We didn't change this. And then domain location, which is where the configuration files and the start and stop scripts and all the other artifacts that make up a WebLogic domain are located. The application location is a default location that the domain will use to deploy applications. So if you're deploying an application through the admin console, this is the default location that it will look for. And then there's the admin server URL. This is the URL that you will use to access your admin console for this domain. So my server happens to be named veyron.dev, and you can see here the default port of 7001/console. Now, if you were installing SOA on your own workstation and you weren't remoted into a server, you could just use localhost in this case. So, and then down at the bottom here, we have next step, start domain, base domain. I do not want the configuration wizard to start the domain for me. I want to start it myself, and I want to show you how to do that too really quick. So go ahead and click finish. And to start the domain ourselves, and hopefully you've done some of this before with previous WebLogic experience, is we have to go to our domain home directory and run the start WebLogic script. So let me figure out where I am. Now let's go back to our Oracle Home directory. And inside here, there should be our user projects, domains, and then the domain that we created, which was base domain. So take a look at my path. Now, keep in mind that I am logged in as the user Oracle, which is why you see /home Oracle here. And then everything else beneath this was created by the installer. Okay. So now that we're in the base domain, just go ahead and launch the start WebLogic.sh script. And it will take some time starting up this domain, depending on your computer, because there are a lot of components, a lot of SOA components take quite a while to initialize. Okay, so once you see, and you're going to see some errors in your domain startup, which is perfectly normal actually. Don't be too concerned about these particular errors. But what we're looking for is that the server started in running mode. So once you see that message, then we can go ahead and log into our admin console and take a poke around. So go ahead and launch your browser. Okay. And then log into your server using the URL that was given to you at the end of the domain configuration. So in my case, that was my host name, 7001 was the port, and then /console. And you're going to log in using the username and password that you specified, which in my case is WebLogic and WebLogic 123. Close that out. And so here it is. Here is your admin console for your SOA domain. So if you take a look at your environment and take a look at your servers, you're going to see that you have only one admin server that's been configured. And then if we click on our deployments, you're going to see, and I can customize this table so we can see everything. I'll just do 1,000 items. Everything here is in support of SOA and Service Bus. And also there's Enterprise Manager here deployed as well. So poke around the console, take a look. There should be some resources that have already been configured to support the SOA stack. You can see all the JMS servers that have been created. One for BPM, one for SOA, one for Unified Messaging Service. And all the various JMS modules and their resources here as well. So if you want to, this is the admin console. If you want to check out the EM console, the Enterprise Manager console, that is just /EM. So edit your address bar and just do 7001/EM here. And that will bring up the Enterprise Manager. Just a different management console for WebLogic. It's a little more coarse-grained than the admin console. Again, log in using WebLogic, then WebLogic 123. Ignore that. And so now that we're in the Enterprise Management Console or the Fusion Middleware Cloud Control, you can get a different view of the health of your environment. And so you can drill down and take a look at monitoring diagnostics and, poke around, take a peek. This is just a different interface for managing a WebLogic domain. Okay, that's it. So we've created a SOA domain. We've got it up and running. Now, our next lab is going to cover launching JDeveloper and configuring this domain as a deployment target.